Hi folks, this is David Easterbrook here. Today I'm going to be working on an apple bonsai. Actually, I'm going to be unwiring it because the wire is biting in now, and then I'll be redesigning it. I am going to redesign it into a semi-cascade style. It's a very interesting trunk with very exaggerated curves. It was actually created from a root that I had cut off when I was repotting a bonsai. You can do root cuttings of apple trees. So let's get started now. First of all, we'll unwire the upper part here. You can either cut off the wire or unwire it. Actually, I'm not going to be keeping a good part of this, but sometimes it's just easier to unwire. So now we're taking off this main wire here. This is actually where it was biting in the most. As you know, it's not the wire that bites in. You can see the scars it's leaving on the tree here. Take off another one. And you can see here, as I'm removing it, the scar here, it's leaving traces of the wire. The wire is inert. The wire doesn't move. It's the tree that we're in the middle of July now, and the tree has thickened up. So the tree has grown into the wire. And if you don't remove it, the wire will leave scar marks for many years to come. So it's better to remove it in time. With conifers, you can leave the wire for quite a while, sometimes for a few years. But with deciduous trees, they have a very thin bark, and the scars will show up basically for years to come. I have some trees that I wired when they were young, and you can still see the scars from where the wire was taken off from about 15 years previous. So you really don't want to do that. You can't really, any tree that has, scars that show up that much would have to be, they're not eligible for a show. So it's better to avoid those problems, nip them in the bud, so to speak. Okay, so here we go. We're taking off this wire here, and when you're unwiring, always start at the ends and work toward the middle. I use one wire for 2 branches, and I always start at the end and then work in toward the main trunk or the main branch, because otherwise, if you're unwiring from the trunk outwards, the branch will flop up and down and probably break. So it's best to use caution when you're unwiring. At the beginning of the trunk here, the wire hasn't bitten in, so that's a good sign. We're removing it on time here, and the part where it has bitten in doesn't bother me that much because it's going to be removed in a moment. I always leave more of a tree to fatten it up, and then eventually I'll cut it off. This tree is still a thin trunk, relatively thin, but with time it'll improve, and the curves will become very interesting as the trunk thickens up. Okay, we're almost done here. Now I'm going to remove the wire from the other end, and everything will be pretty well off. This is aluminum wire, so it's soft. It's pretty easy to remove with your fingers. So you can unwire it quite easily, and you can straighten it out just by grabbing both ends with a pair of pliers and pulling with a snapping motion, and the wire will straighten out. It's hard to do with thicker wires, anything from about 3 or 4 millimeters up. But with thinner wires, you can save a lot of money by recycling it. I don't keep the shorter pieces, I only keep the longer pieces. I couldn't be bothered trying to recycle short pieces of wire. Okay, so here we go. And finally, the last wire here is coming off. Always hold. When you unwire, it's exactly the opposite of wiring. Your fingers are holding the wire and sliding backwards as you're unwiring so you don't break the branch. Okay, there we go. So all the wires off the tree. Now, this tree has some beautiful curves, and now this part has been curved outwards. Now I did bring part of the tree back over the trunk, but I want to keep the movement, the basic movement of this tree flowing outwards. So there's a section up here that I find is creating too much of a circle, and it's ending up above the trunk line, which I don't like. So all this part of the tree will be removed right here, okay? And I'll be concentrating on the cascading part of the trunk. I find that more interesting. We also have a back branch here that's pretty overwhelming, so I'm going to cut that back short, but keep it. And I'll be working with what's left here, okay? And I think that's, it's going to make a much more interesting tree. So we will rewire this branch here. Oh, I forgot to wire. There's a piece here. There's some wire that I hadn't seen, and it was left on, so we'll remove that also. And we'll use a thicker wire to train now what's become the main branch from about here down to here. Now this is, as I say, is still a very young bonsai in training, but you have to start them off right. That's the most important thing for me, starting a tree off right. Okay, so we're going to take some more wire here, and this time I'm going to wire in the opposite direction. Whoops, just a sec here. Okay. In the opposite direction of where it was going. I'm going to use a thicker wire because I'm using it almost as a guide rather than just wiring the branch. So I'm going to be using one wire for 2 branches. So now I will be using this end here to go up to here, and the other end will be this cascading branch. And I have arranged to wire in the opposite direction of the wire I just removed. Basically I have, yeah. There is a part here where it's in the same direction, but what I'll do is I'll just organize it so that my new wire will fall in between the scars of the old wire. And that way we won't aggravate what we already have. Okay. So here we go. Now the wire shouldn't be too tight because we still are in midsummer. This tree has a lot more growing to do. And if I wire too tightly, the wire will again have sunken in by the time fall rolls around. So I'm just basically wiring very, very loosely here. Okay. I'll finish this wire here now. Okay. And here we're going to the end now. We actually have two ends, but eventually I'll reduce one in size. So I think I'm going to be using this thinner branch as the new apex of my cascading branch. Here we go. Because the tree is the shape we've given it is so twisted. Here you can see that the line is very long and straight. So we want to keep that twisting movement going. We want harmony in our bonsai. So here is where we're going to have to do a very radical curve. Try to get this branch on the outside of the curve, and we have to make some really radical moves. Okay, now we're going to be wiring some side branches here. They're in the way, so we have to get them out of the way. And finish this wiring job here. Okay, so now we're coming to the end, and we have a double branch here. We don't want two. So I don't think we're going to remove it. We'll just wire it to the outside of the curve. Right now it's inside the curve. So we'll have to change the branch's orientation so that we can put that second branch on the outside. So we'll finish this wire here. Then you always have to, before doing anything, you have to finish the other end. So the other end is over here. So let's do the other end. We're doing this very, very, very tiny branch. Okay, here we go. And we want the upper surface of the leaf being face up, okay? And these smaller branches, we want them floating above the main trunk line, which is cascading downwards. Now I'm going to take care of this back branch. It's been in the way, it's been preventing me from wiring for a long time. I'm going to cut off this one and get a wire for this other one here. So we have to anchor it. We don't have another appropriate branch to anchor on. So I'll just be anchoring it on this, doubling it back once or twice so that the wire will be anchored. Now I'll come over to here and so I think I'm going to do one more turn because I think it's too far away to be solidly anchored. Here we go. Stay out of that former scar though. Here we are. So now let's go. And This branch is very long, but we can cut it back. I usually do it when I'm doing the winter pruning. During the summer, I'm trying to leave as many little branches on as possible to give the tree strength. So I don't mind leaving it a little long, and then, you know, if you want to shorten a branch with that you've just wired, all you have to do is you can give it a few twists. Sometimes fruiting trees, the twists can look exaggerated and you know, awkward. But as the tree ages, the twists start to look more and more natural. So don't worry about it too much. Now we'll do from here to here. We're going to do the upper part. And then finally there'll just be a lower branch left. Usually I start from the bottom and work my way up. But in this case, what's happened is that because the branches were so long and they were always in the way, I didn't follow the normal procedure for wiring. Here we go here. And cut this one off. And finally, we're just left with one branch, an outlier. So this one again, we'll have to anchor on some other part. This one's a bit stiffer, so we'll have to use a slightly thicker wire in order to bend it. Applewood is hard, and so you want to be able to use a thick enough wire that you can really move that branch around. So we're giving it 1 or 2 turns around the base of the trunk so that I can anchor this wire. There we go. She's anchored. And now we will be wiring this branch. This is a background branch. It's quite, it's a little bit awkward, and we should never, the first branch should never be a back branch, but so far it's slightly empty. So we want to fill out the tree. Eventually we can remove it. I prefer to leave more branches than less. So I often leave more, and when the other branches have thickened up, that'll be the time I'll remove it. So here we go. We're wiring this one. And the little one here, we can get away with not wiring it. So now comes the most important part, is the placing. And what I'm trying to do, as I said, there's some very odd and unusual curves in this trunk, and I'm going to try to accentuate what I've just wired in order to match all of these odd curves. This is our new top here, right here. So this will be coming up, and part of it will be coming downwards to make a dropping branch. This here, we need foreground in our tree. So this branch is going to be my front branch. And again, it's going to be facing outwards. Now this is an odd branch. This one was always in the way as I was wiring before. So now I'm going to I'm using it as a background branch. There's still part of it that needs a little bit of wire put on it because it's still sticking out. So I'll just give this a second piece of wire. Here we go. Okay, now that that's anchored, okay, let's bring it to the front again and see. We're gonna have, it needs to be, fill out the background here. So this is where we want it. It's a little bit straight there, so we're gonna give it some interesting curves. And finally, this last one here. This one here, I don't even know if I used a wire thick enough to really place it, but I just want it out of the way because, as I say, eventually, this first branch is, it's in the back, and it's not a good thing to have the first branch be a back branch. So I'm just getting it out of the way. So, oops, 1 minute, we just have to bring up our top a little bit and then this down. Okay, so you don't see the base of the trunk very well. I'll try to slide it out of its pot a little bit. Here. So now you'll see what it looks like here. This is a future semi-cascade apple bonsai. So it's got some very unusual curves, but I think it'll make a very interesting bonsai as it ages. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed what I did today. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's free and there's many more to come. Thanks a lot.